Hello folks, this is Gabo reporting from Chopram. Today I want to do the next video out of the remaining four about Ukraine, and as I promised, I want to go deeper today about it, so I want to talk about the emotions and about some deeper aspects of the conflict. Why do I want to do that? Well, because first I want to understand the conflict, and also Ukraine has become, well, maybe it's a mean thing to say, but a negative example for me and for the countries all around, because in some ways Ukraine is similar to us. And I think it's the best if we learn from their mistakes so that we are not going to their place. Because there is a reason, that's my opinion, why a country, a person invites the devil in their lives, invites death, destruction in their existence, and many times it's personal mistakes. Now I understand that there is this notion, don't blame the victim, and I don't feel it's about blaming, it's about making everybody responsible for things that they are really responsible, and to see what choices Ukraine made in order to get where they are. I was helping Ukrainian refugees a lot about a year ago after the war started until about the end of April, and also beyond that a little bit. I saved, well, it wasn't only me who saved them, but I helped in saving 3 Ukrainians from the Polish border. I was driving them from the Polish border back to Sopron, to my hometown, because this is where they got accommodation from a friend of mine. And he asked me to help their Ukrainian friends. So I was the chauffeur for Ukrainian refugees, 3 of them. And they were really great people, yeah, so that's educated, really top class people who knew a lot about life, about culture, about it was a pleasure to get to know them. It was fantastic. I especially liked one of the, well, he wasn't really a babushka because he was, I think, 60 at the time. She was 60 at the time, and we had a really great conversation. And we had a lot in common. That's something that I also found out. Also a way of thinking. And I asked her once, like, what's wrong with you Slavic people? Like, you are so, like, especially, like seeing as a Hungarian, a completely different language, similar culture, but at the core completely different. Like, you Slavic people are so fucking similar, like from our perspective, almost the same. And yet, why the fuck do you hate each other so much that you are cutting each other's throat? Like, it's a bit like as if I went to my sister, I cut her throat because, I don't know, for some fucking reason. And she just thought for a while like this. And that was already astonishing for me, like it's such a question, and she just takes it in and tastes it and thinks about the answer. And she said, Gabor, I don't really see what you see, because I, by I mean her, of course, I grew up in the Soviet Union, and what I saw is that all the peoples got together. And she was, of course, born after Stalin, after the death of Stalin. And then she continued that, like, there's, for example, me. My mom is Russian, my dad is Ukrainian, my husband is also Ukrainian. We all speak Russian, and we don't notice any sort of differences between us. And before the fall of the Soviet Union, these differences were just not visible in the everyday life. We were intermarrying, we were coming together, enjoying life in a peaceful way. And she also added that it was more or less like this until the war, regardless of the propaganda that is around the war and around Ukraine. And it started changing with the war, so that families stopped talking to each other. Like there are a lot of Ukrainians, for example, living in Russia. They stopped talking to the family in Ukraine, or vice versa, don't talk to each other, hate each other, spit on each other. And that's just horrible. But it's also important to see that things can be different, and could be the complete opposite of war. And when it comes to most of the Slavic nations, I don't think that it would be a huge effort. As in, there are so many similarities that if the Slavic peoples focused on these similarities, then they could be just, like one strong family close together. So why this doesn't happen is still an interesting question, but I'm glad for this refugee who is already a friend of mine for opening my eyes that, there is also another side of the coin, right? So there is a lot of love behind all this bullshit that is happening in the Slavic world. Now, I do understand the reason for corruption, and I mean corruption not in, like, how to say, like stealing money or bribing people to do some shady shit. I'm not talking about this sort of corruption. I'm talking about the etymology of the word corruption, and it comes from Latin, like most of the English words that have actually some sort of deeper meaning. So corruption means breaking into little pieces. And when I speak about the corruption of the Slavic world, is that the Slavic world broke into little pieces that are actually really similar to each other, but still acting as different entities that oftentimes hate each other nowadays. So what I can see in Ukraine is that such a rich country, like the soil, resources like uranium, for example, but many other resources. There is also industry. There is a lot of things, that could make people extremely fucking rich, like if they just worked together somehow. And like I'm in this age when I remember shit, like, and I have been following politics since I was a teenager and even before. And I remember this message really clearly that was returning in every Ukrainian election to be a bridge between Russia, so the Eastern world, and the Western world. And I feel that somehow that message, that idea wasn't really taken seriously. had it been taken seriously, things might have been worked out differently. But now here are where we are, of course. And it's really unfortunate, and I hope that the conflict stops in Ukraine. I believe it less and less as the days go by. But it's still important to ask, in my opinion, what is it that we can do now, not only the Ukrainians, but also us, to stop the corruption, because it can spread, like this breaking into pieces can happen to other people's, to, well, it's already happening, but like it's that this breaking into pieces leads, if it leads to a breaking point, when everything collapses, when people in their minds they collapse, when groups break into little pieces, when families break apart, then there is just nothing to stop the chaos. And this is what I want to refer to my previous video. It's about growing up and see that we are actually responsible for ourselves, for our actions. We are responsible for our family. We are responsible for our country. And to return to these structures and participate in these structures. Like voting is not enough. Waking up and going to a corporate job every day is not enough. Like waking up and show our, like just throw our children to the kindergarten and to, see them for 2 hours every day, or, like breaking apart completely from our parents. Like sometimes, there's a good reason for that, right? But I think many times it's just, like forced in a way that we refuse to face things. And that was my example, definitely. So I think what we can do is to reclaim our world. And I don't know if this can happen to Ukraine, because it's just, like things are so down on the road already, like down in the abyss. So it could just, I don't know, like what could lift Ukraine up again. But like there is always hope. And I think what we can do is that what the advice of Jordan Peterson is to get ourselves back together, then get our families back together. Like it's not only our responsibility, right? But like at least if there is still a place for us, take the place. And once we have a place in our family, then we create our family, then we create a small, was the word, group of people, right? Doing something like a neighborhood or a political party, something to participate in building the society up. This is what Plato said. Like I don't remember it exactly, but what he was saying is that, like if we don't deal with public affairs, evil man will do it for us. Yeah, if we say that, okay, we don't care about it, then somebody will care, but they will not do what is the best for us. And it's not just in Ukraine. I also see people around me who would have time, money, and also the power to impact things around them in their lives, and they just don't do it. They ignore the responsibilities and they complain that like somebody should do something about it. And when I ask why not you, they say like, well, no, 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 like, why me? Like I don't want to do it. Like, this is bad and blah, blah, blah. Like if this is the attitude, then things will change, but things will go down. It's not about politicians, it's not about corporations, it's not about Russia, it's not about the US. Well, these entities, of course, they have their own responsibility for their own actions, but like these are all evils that we invite ourselves in our lives. So this is something that I am working towards, to take up the responsibilities, and not really for preventing horrible things from happening. Like my reason is to really create the life that I want to live. It's a responsibility, but this responsibility comes with meaning and can come with joy. Like when I look back on a good day and I see the things that I have done, and I'm like, awesome, this is really nice. Is that enough? There is another thing that is think is really, really important, is to actually clean up the past, because there are a lot of traumas, there are a lot of horrible things that happened, not only to us but to our family, to our ancestors. And you don't have to go far to read about this, right? You can read history, you can read social psychology or psychology in general, that goes back and to see how horrible things in the past, like rapes, murders, killings, famine, loss of wealth, forced abortions, whatever, like they are still impacting us. Like if it happened 1, 2, 3 generations, 50, 100 years ago, on the level of the collective, it's like it happened yesterday. Like individuals might not remember it, but our bodies, our systems, everything remembers. And when it comes to the example of Ukraine, there are shitloads of horrible things happened in Ukraine, not only to Ukrainians. Like that's another thing, that victimhood is never static. It's always a dynamic thing. You're a victim, you're a victimizer, you're a victim, you're a victimizer, victim perpetrator, victim perpetrator, victim perpetrator. And this is what history really looks like. Not like, like one group, victims all the time. Bullshit. No, never happens. So yeah, Ukrainians suffered a lot, and Ukrainians made other people suffer a lot as well. And this is something that also needs to be cleaned. Same for Hungarians, same for Polish, same for Russians, same for Romanians, same for everybody in the region and in the whole world, but especially in Europe, because there has been a lot of shit for a lot of centuries, and we just forgot how to deal with those things. So to clean, to heal, and to live the lives freely, live our lives freely as grown-ups, that's, I think, something that could make a difference. I know it's possible in the individual level. On a group level, how it's done, I have no fucking clue, but it's necessary. Otherwise, we're going to the fucking hell, man. But that's not the only way, and it's not the only possibility. Heaven is also possible, with the right choices. Yeah, and making this choice is just up to us. All the best. I'm out for now. Ciao, ciao.